Hello and welcome everyone. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to Riley Knowles, an aspiring UX designer. We'll be discussing what got her interested in a career in UX, as well as answering as many of her questions as possible that she has about the technology industry. Before we get started, we'll just let Riley introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Riley. I got interested in the UX design kind of through a longer process. I've always been a really creative person ever since I've been a kid. I very seriously participated in musical theater for a while, but eventually ended up pursuing a computer science degree because I also kind of loved math and found computation like really satisfying. Um, but kind of ended up feeling that being a software engineer wasn't necessarily my path either. And I found user experience design kind of as the happy marriage of kind of that logical and systematic approach, and working in agile development teams and that iterative process, as well as you know being creative and thinking about the bigger picture about what is the story we're trying to tell, what is the process that we're trying to make easier. And so that feels like a really exciting thing to me, and something I've found that I do really enjoy in my kind of work that I've done thus far.
Hmm. Amazing. Have you worked on any projects that are similar to UX UI while you started doing your degree in comp sci?
Yeah, so I actually did do some projects as part of my degree. So the first project I did was actually as part of my advanced software engineering course, where we had to design and implement a domain specific language. And so we thought about a user group and thought about like empathize with them and the tasks that what would they want to do, what would be useful for them, and designed a very specific language for that. And then of course we coded it as a computer science course, but we also ran usability tests and used those tests to inform adjustments to the language. We also did that again in that course with actually a program analysis visualization. So we made a really silly, fun visualization interface of uh, a software class structure kind of as an instructional tool. We also ran usability studies with that. And I actually was the kind of primary owner of the kind of wrap up videos at the end of that process. So I, for both projects, was in charge of, planning and scripting, kind of the storytelling process of how we progressed through our project, the ups and the downs and the end product, and things like that. So that was one. And I also do have another, if that's okay. I took a information visualization course as a part of my undergraduate degree. And that was probably my favorite course, actually, where we learned about kind of basic design principles and kind of characterizing data and the cardinality of data and making the best choices for how to visualize that, to accurately communicate, what should be taken away from the data. And there's a lot of different like psychology about perception and that goes into that. That was super, super interesting to me. And so me and another two teammates, we ended up building a project in JavaScript and D3, and just HTML, CSS, processing and visualizing this data. And we ended up actually winning like the best project that term, which was really exciting because it was something that I was pretty proud of. And that was even before I kind of knew that user experience design was the next step. So it was fun to realize when I wanted to go into UX design, oh, I actually have all this experience that was already pushing me towards that without me even realizing it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I think especially how UX design is such a new field, a lot of the people,
Mhm.
what happens is they don't naturally incline towards UX. They just discover that UX is a part of who they are, and it is a part of how you essentially approach a problem. I'm sure that in all those projects you were already carrying on with a lot of design methodologies. I'm sure you've done
Yeah.
like user personas. You've done a
Yeah.
lot of that work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just building onto that, you realize it's a part of you without knowing. That super rings true for me because even I realized, in the previous jobs I've had, in previous positions that I have, I am actually not capable of like stopping myself from making kind of processes better. You just notice a problem and you're like, wait, how can I make this a little better? How can I make this a little better? And just iterating on the things around me to, make them more productive for my team members. And, how can I improve communication to make these things faster? And that in a way is, empathizing with the people around you, assessing their needs and, ideating a creative solution to reach that goal. So I realized
Mhm.
that design thinking is actually like really deeply ingrained in
Mhm.
myself, which was kind of cool.
No, that's awesome. So obviously you have the mindset, you have the skills. So what are you finding challenging about entering the UX field?
I think it can be overwhelming, seeing other people's portfolios, and just knowing and hearing that it's, the hottest thing. Um, and so that can be intimidating for sure, because I do have these projects, and I did work through a lot of Google's UX design certificate. But it's challenging to kind of communicate your skills and make yourself compelling, especially when I think a lot of my skills come from design thinking and being like very rooted in like good process, um, and less of kind of just flashy, beautiful designs.
Mhm.
So it's challenging. It's just makes me a little nervous.
Mhm. Yes, no, definitely. I think that especially the portfolio anxiety is something that's very natural, and what also amplifies it is how much web design tools have advanced in terms of their capacities. Designers aren't really expected to code. I mean, obviously, if you have the ability to code, which you have, that puts you in a huge advantage whenever going into a position or whenever you're working at a smaller company and they require you to do some front end coding. Uh, but especially with tools like FrameworkX or tools like Webflow, the capabilities that are available web design, be it like an Apple.com AirPods website. You could do that just using Webflow, and you without needing too big of a team. And I think that this is one of the challenges, because a lot of the times when you're beginning as a designer, you don't need to have the most stunning portfolio. What you need to have is you have a grasp of the basic skills that are needed in UX, as well as learning how to present your case studies. I'd say those are some of the biggest things. But I'm kind of curious. So, what would you say would be an ambition that you have in your professional life? What is your cure cancer type of goal?
I don't know if I have anything as big as that. Honestly, I don't think I have like the biggest, craziest dream. I would say my ambition is really just to be a part of, a design team, work as a designer, and, add value to that team. Um, that it is really that simple. I'd like to work on, I think, design projects that maybe eventually, if I let myself dream a little bigger, maybe have a large impact. It would be amazing to like work at a large company and know that my designs were having positive impact that made, technology easier to use, more accessible, and just kind of ironed out some of the wrinkles that people experience when they engage with technology. Because I think a lot of people in the tech space forget that there is a huge proportion of the population who still, has technology and just bangs their head against the wall because it just isn't intuitive to them. So it would be nice to like know that I'm making a positive impact in that way, long term.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Yeah, no, I like how you mentioned the word accessible.
Yeah.
What about the word accessible attracts you to it?
Well, I think when you think of accessibility in terms of UX design, I think a lot of people immediately think of, okay, well, I got to make sure, the font is big enough and that all my colors are color safe, for colorblind accessibility. But one of my favorite things to think about when I think about accessibility is, I forget the exact terms, but there's kind of like permanent, um, like you permanently can't use something or you temporarily can't use something or have some sort of disability, or situationally, like you're holding a baby and you only have one hand. Um, and so I like thinking about accessibility as it's it's really making products easier to use for more people more of the time. As
Mhm.
someone who, like, I had carpal tunnel and all of a sudden I was using talk to text all the time. And that was a very temporary issue, but it helped. Um, and I also think of uh, Google. I think of Google because when people first get onto the internet for the very first time, um, the first thing they do is probably search something over Google, and thinking about, how to design those first entry places on the internet such that people who've never used the internet for can use it for their benefit and become a part of that world and make more money or find more information and raise themselves in that way. And I that's a really exciting angle of accessibility to me.
Mhm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think have you been? I'm sure you've been to the building in Vantage in UBC
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Orchard Commons. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I was in first year at UBC, I had an office hours with a professor for psychology. I think it was Psych 102 or so. And he was at the time he was an assistant professor. Now I think he's tenured. I'm not too sure. I haven't talked to him in a while. But he was blind, and what I found to be super interesting about him was he was one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met in my life.
Mhm.
He came. I think I remember he came from Japan, like like I think in 2011 or so, and then eventually ended up getting studying his PhD at UBC. Eventually ended up getting his PhD, and I'm sure he's got his tenureship now. But what I found interesting was that he navigated through all the hallways, basically using I'm not too sure what you call, but like the little labels for accessibility for showing the
Oh,
dots.
yes. Yes. Braille.
The braille, yeah. Yeah, the braille signals. I'm sorry if I butchered this, but
No.
essentially
No.
it's that. And and not just that, but also the way that his computer was built. He basically relied on using the tab, the
Mhm.
tab key, in order to essentially
Oh,
travel through the screen.
right.
And essentially, how that works is through the focus state. So the focus state is essentially the state before clicking. And that's only triggered through tab or through essentially if you're clicking an item, but you're not going with the whole click. So essentially, if you're inspecting a site, you're only
Mhm.
inspecting one single section. And every time something was in focus state, his computer was programmed to essentially, let's say, I don't know, he's on Google, the the voice inside the computer would then say search, type here, whatever. And his interface was such an interesting setup that to this day I still look back at it whenever I think of accessibility. And I think
Yeah,
of
you
how,
look so energized. It is super
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and it's incredible because having all those tools enabled him to be as successful and as such an amazing professor that I still remember till today.
Yeah. Oh
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I find it also interesting how the first thing that comes to your mind in accessibility is Google, because Google's really good at accessibility. Uh,
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple of the designers back when I lived in San Francisco, and yeah, a lot of them very extremely capable when it comes to accessibility, extremely capable when it comes to all these different design decisions. Yeah, it's definitely they definitely know a lot about that. So, do you see yourself working for like a large company? Do you see yourself working for a startup? Staying in Canada, coming back to the States? Like, what's kind of like the vision you have for your life?
Yeah, this is actually the easiest question. I I went to Canada for university, but I am, U.S. citizen. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I love Portland, Oregon. But yeah, I'm ready to return to the United States. I actually would really like to, live and work in New York City. Because it's a really artistic city. It kind of like touches that, creative part of my heart. And I would like to see myself working at a larger company, um, just because I really like feeling a part of like a large organization. And even if I'm a teeny tiny piece of that, I know that I'm working on um, features and products that end up reaching a lot of people, and that's really motivating to make sure it's done at a really high quality. Um, and that's really important to me. I don't necessarily want to be, just trying to scrape something together frantically that works. Um, I want to be creating scalable, really well designed, thoughtful features and products that, you know, will work for hundreds of thousands of millions of people. Um, I mean, that'd be incredible to me. So
Nice. That's awesome. There's a lot of great product companies in New York. I know that I think Notion just opened an office there.
yeah.
Yeah, so no, definitely New York's a great place for that. How about the other two tech cities in the States, like San Francisco or Austin?
I've definitely considered Austin. I've never been to Austin, um, but I would really like to go. I wouldn't take Austin off the table. I would be really interested in something in Austin, especially because I love music, and I know Austin is a really big city for music, and I know it is a growing tech place, which is great opportunity. I'm less attracted to San Francisco. I I don't know what to say. It's just not quite. I think I want to break from the West Coast. I've lived on the West Coast all my life, and I'm ready to try something different and see what it's like. I know
Oh.
you said you're in Dallas. I heard you. No, but Austin does appeal to that part of me that does still love the outdoors. I really want to road trip Utah, which is reasonably close, and have land and have a dog to run outside, and I think of those things when I think of living in Austin. And I do like the heat more than the rain and the cold, so that is also
Yes.
attractive to me about Austin.
So going back into some of the stuff related to design. So you
Hmm.
mentioned you wanted to work on features that influence thousands, if not millions, of users. Basically, finding your passion within the field of UX, but you know that UX is already your passion. What would you say would be some of the immediate aspects that are stopping you that might make you a bit anxious in terms of advancing within interviews? Or better off, have you already done some interviews before?
No, I haven't done any interviews yet. I feel like I'm at the really early stages.
Mhm.
And perhaps that is why I'm the most nervous, because I don't quite have a lot of feedback, right? When you're just sending applications and you kind of get silence. but how long is silence? So I wouldn't say I've necessarily hit any hard barriers yet, but I want to proactively know, how do I set myself apart? How do I set myself up for success? What are the obvious things that I don't know? I don't know what I don't know,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. And so I want to be prepared, if if and when I get an interview, and make sure that my portfolio and my LinkedIn and my resume are all doing me favors.
Mhm.
um, so that's kind of my goal, I guess.
Mhm. So in terms of interviews, the best approach in terms of tackling nervousness and all the competition when it comes to getting an interview and eventually landing the job. The first thing is the portfolio. Now we're going to skip the portfolio part because that's it's very complex, but there's also been lots of different resources towards it. Let's assume you get the interview. So how do you approach the interview? So there is a designer by the name of Artem Dashinsky, who is he is a pioneer when it comes to the world of interviews. Let me just share my screen real quick and show you his book. So this book is called Solving Product Design Exercises. So this is by far the best book when it comes to solving a lot of the common design exercises that you get when you're interviewing for a large company, especially when you're interviewing for your first role. Let's put ourselves in the perspective of a company. They have hundreds and hundreds of applicants that might be similar to you, might be similar to me, might be similar to anyone else. So you have to find a way of how to differentiate yourself. And the best place where you can differentiate yourself is through the interview. So what this book does is it allows you to create a structure for solving any of the design exercises that they give you. So typically how an interview works is that they're going to give you a series of different tasks. So the first task would be, for example, they have a prompt with some random problem. The most common one is to redesign an ATM for kids. This was one prompt that was used in Meta back in 2018, 2019. And it was a big trick question because you think, okay, redesign an ATM for kids. Simple, just make it smaller. I don't know, make the buttons bigger, add some cartoons into the interface. But that's wrong. Do you know why that answer would be wrong?
Our student, not students, are an ATM for children. What does ATM stand for? Are we making the assumption that it stands for something financial when it stands for something else?
Exactly, exactly. So assuming it's financial, the first question you need to ask is, why do children need to have access to money or to cash
Mm.
money? Who are the children? What are their personas? You might have a particular persona. Let's say, I don't know, Timmy is 10 years old. He needs money to pay for his lunch at school. And then if he wants to go to the movies with his friends, he also has his allowance. So we already understand who it is. Then after that, we have, okay, so how do we want to benefit Timmy, the user persona? And so with that, you essentially break down the problem into smaller prompts until you eventually get to the phase where you begin wireframing and you begin creating the solution. And that way of thinking is what this book teaches you. So
So focusing on asking the questions to make sure you really understand the prompt,
yes,
before just jumping in blindly to designing without checking your assumptions.
yes. And typically what you
Cool.
do is you go about doing a schema like this. So I did something similar when I interviewed at Salesforce. They gave me I forgot what the exact prompt was, but it was something to do with air conditioning. And what we had to do is we had to then break down the entire problem inside of a Miro board, and I broke it down using exactly the same methodology. So I'd say that apart from having a good portfolio, apart from having, you know, all those other things, I'd say that learning how to be able to break down a problem like this on the spot is one of the best things that you can do. The truth is, not that many people do this, and a lot of
Really?
people, yeah,
See, that's surprising to me
mhm,
because that is an assumption that I'm making. I'm
mhm.
assuming everyone has this, natural questioning, inquisitive, problem-solving inclination if they got into this field, but I guess
Mhm.
I have to check my assumptions.
Yes. Well, I mean, what happens a lot is that this is more used when you're in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
When you're applying for a senior position or for a manager position, it's a different template. I can refer you to some videos from other YouTubers like Femke that basically they craft that process a bit better. But that's
Mhm.
when you have a lot more experience.
Yeah.
When
No, we're
Mhm.
looking for job number one.
Job number one. Okay. So I say job number one, you need to know how to do this from memory. I'd say that this is the most important thing because once you're able to do this, this then translates into solving any other issues that you have within user experience. So yeah, so I'd say this book is definitely something that will completely change the way you see interviews. And the most important
Mhm.
aspect of it is that it also allows you to show your professional personality. So how
Mm.
you speak, how you essentially sell your idea, which all those things, there's a certain personality that everyone has, and that's also another soft skill that is very important whenever it comes to convincing other people to think of your idea. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
someone who talks out loud and thinks with my hands, and the way that I solve a problem is very different than, some of my peers when I was in my computer science degree. Very different approach to problem solving. So that makes complete sense to me.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's one of the things that especially when you're working in a large company, a lot of the work you do as a designer is essentially stakeholder management. So sitting in meetings and
Mhm.
understanding what people are looking for and aligning
Mhm.
people in order to then provide a design that solves all of their problems or a series of designs. Because what happens a lot, this has happened to me a lot in my jobs before, is that we end up doing 50 different versions, 20 different versions, and then we end up going with the simplest one. And all that's done because we want to essentially fail in pixels, not fail in code.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. You want to fail when it's low stakes.
Yes, no, absolutely. You also had another question that you did send me about cover letters. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. All the cover letters I've really written have been more focused on um kind of software engineering type roles in the past. And now that I am trying to write cover letters
Mhm.
for design positions, um, because I want to write more than what's in my resume, right? Because you don't want to just summarize your resume. Um, and I want to be able to say, I did X to achieve Y, right? Because you want to have some sort of result of what you did. And that's really easy if you increased productivity by 15%. Um, but if you don't necessarily have those quantitative measures, um, I'm kind of struggling to like, what is the structure? Is the structure the same? Is it like as I have learned it? Um, and how do you stand out?
So have you ever gone looking for homes?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Okay.
like
Or have your
apartment
parents been
hunting.
looking? No, more about like buying a home. Like, have you ever been with your parents, like looking to buy a
Oh,
home or gone with them?
honestly, no.
Mhm. Okay, that's completely fine. Yeah, so my dad, he's very interested in real estate. So since I first moved to Texas, we've gone looking for a lot of homes, and we've been looking for just like looking at different areas, and comparing, how different areas are in terms of homes, here in
Mhm.
Dallas. And one thing that I found really interesting was, what is the difference of the experience whenever you're buying a used home? So I don't know, you go on Zillow and you see a used home, that the seller is selling it as is. It's got a lot of work to be done, but you put in the work into the home, and it's going to be amazing place. Wooden floors, granite countertops, everything. That's versus the story of buying a brand new home. How do you think that's different?
Actually, I think this is an effective analogy if I'm taking it in correctly. Because when I think about buying a
Mhm.
used home, you're selling the potential.
Yes.
When you talk about it that way, you're selling the potential that that home has. Whereas a new home, you're saying it's shiny, it's beautiful, it has everything that you could ever want and dream. It's perfect. That's what I imagine the difference to be.
But what happens a lot is you never actually step into your home until it's built. What happens a lot is you step into the model home, and the model home is furnished in a way that essentially screams Christmas morning. The kids are coming down and opening the presents. And that in itself is telling a story, because you enter a new home, you see the stairs, you see the living room, you see the kitchen, you see the dining hall, the rooms, whatever it may be. That's essentially the story that it's telling. And then you see the neighborhood, everything is brand new. Everyone is, there's a different type of feel to it. Now, obviously, a new home is going to be exponentially more expensive than a home that's for repairing. But at the same time, there is a person that you sell a new home to versus a person you sell a used home for repairs. And within that metaphor, the best way that someone can position themselves is by stepping completely out of the expectations of an employer and going above and beyond. And the best way, I think, personally, of telling your own story is personalizing your cover letters for each of your jobs. And if you can, include a video.
Include a video?
Yeah, like a 5 minute, 1 minute video recording of you basically just going over or just introducing who you are. Because what you want to do is you want to give your prospective employer the idea of what it's like working with you before you even
I
talk
have
to them.
never heard of that idea, but that actually sounds like such a good idea because I always think that I'm much more compelling, speaking and engaging, than how I can communicate just like with the written word. So it's never occurred to me. So is that something that you've actually done? Is just record a little video,
Mhm.
giving like, "Hey, this is who I am. This is why I can bring value to your team. Um, you know, please let me tell you more about X, Y, and Z project."
Yep, I've done that a couple times. I've used Loom mainly for it, but I've also created like a default video back when I was doing more freelancing at Upwork. I still have it in there. It's a bit of an older video, but it's basically just me introducing myself, introducing my work experience, and that video has helped me land lots of really really good clients, and it's something that I always attach to all of my job applications, essentially introducing who I am. And what's also interesting about video content is that, uh, especially today with AI technology, with ChatGPT, all
Yeah.
these tools, it's so simple to generate an essay.
Just use that to generate your cover letter. That's what everyone else is doing, which makes me feel so yucky. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you should definitely do video content alongside a 2 to 3 sentence covered letter. Not much. I don't really think
Do
too much is
two to
necessary.
three sentence?
Yep.
Wow, wait, that's very short.
Yeah, just be extremely short. Say, hi, my name is Riley. I am the person for this job because this, and that. I've attached a quick video telling, you know, talking about who I am, and I hope that we can talk soon. Best. I say something like that would be good. I mean, if you want to add more, you can definitely do that. But I found that to be pretty useful in terms of differentiating yourself.
Yeah,
Uh,
wow.
And I'll tell you another story that's related to that. So
Okay.
I recently, actually no, this last year I bought a car for the first time, and I was between a Hyundai and a Toyota.
Hmm.
I was fixated with the Hyundai at first because I remember when I was younger, like my dad test drove a Hyundai Elantra, and I thought it was really cool. So I had the
Oh,
Hyundai
those childhood
Elantra.
memories are so strong.
Yes, very strong. So I had the Hyundai Elantra in my mind. But my dad always told me, you should get a Toyota, reliability, whatever. And I ended up traveling to Vancouver for business for around a month or so. And I completely forgot about the car. But when I checked my email, I saw that the people from the Toyota dealership were sending me videos about basically saying, "Hi, Sebastian, we're here in the Toyota dealership. We have this car, whatever." When I came back to Texas, I went to the Hyundai dealership, but they didn't have any Elantras in stock. And so I was walking outside. I was waiting for my Uber, and I said, "Hey, I'll check out the Toyota dealership." And it turned out that subconsciously, all of those videos convinced me into getting a Toyota.
Yep.
And that same day, I ended up just buying the Toyota.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely
and
underestimate how powerful video content is, which I shouldn't because it's been very clear with YouTube and TikTok and like how hugely integrated into our culture these things are. And I've even read statistics about, having a video on your website and how that increases engagement. And, people spend X amount more seconds on the screen when there's a video versus when there's not. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that story makes sense.
Which projects are you going to be putting in your portfolio?
So I currently have two projects in my portfolio. I have the information visualization project, um, and I have that in my portfolio, as well as one project I completed in Figma for the Google UX design course.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So the Google UX design course it's a great course. I've done it myself. I've done it a couple of times actually. The only thing I would say is try to focus on the data visualization one, and also this is the one of the things that a lot of designers talk about. So what happens a lot is that a lot of new designers they swear by their life on what they learned from a boot camp, and that's good when you start. But what differentiates you between a good designer and a great designer is being able to essentially branch out of the boot camp and select specific skills that you learn in boot camp. So, for example, creating user persona, that's one part. Analyzing data, creating, I don't know, like roses, buds, and thorns, whatever other methodology for synthesizing information. Maybe, I don't know, you might go into Python or R and create diagrams with data from a site. That's another skill. But essentially, how do you craft it all together in order to tell a story? That is the most important skill. And a lot of times you have to break free from what you were taught in the boot camp to do that. And essentially, what the boot camp tells you is, okay, how do you do the basic structure? Now, once you have the basic structure, you have to learn how to break it. And I'd say that's one of the best things when it comes to then actually telling the story in your portfolio. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And I think I did actually try to do that and think consciously about that, because I know that my data visualization project is unique because it isn't birthed from a boot camp or a self-taught course. Um, and so it is unique in that way. And I focus a lot on like in the task abstraction and choosing kind of those more niche things. Um, and for the project that is from the Google UX design course, I I went back and forth on this because I feel a little insecure that maybe it's too bare bones and maybe it's too short. But I also feel pride in it because I think there is really good storytelling in that specific project. Um, and I made the choice to really, instead of going through kind of the user personas and the journey mapping and every single little thing that I did, um, I focused on kind of the big main pieces that just pushed the narrative along that I wanted to tell about that project. Um, so even though it made me a little nervous, that's the choice I made. Um, I
Mhm.
don't know. Is that a good choice or a bad choice? I'll find out in further down the line.
Yeah, no, no, that makes a lot of sense. And also another thing that's interesting is this: if your skill is data visualization, I'd say, okay, amazing. Try to get some more experience learning more about data visualization, and then apply for a B2B company. I mean, I'd say apply for like I don't know, like Tableau or any other of these companies that need more help in UX UI. Or if you're more interested in gaining mobile experience, you can then say, okay, I'm going to work on a mobile project, maybe freelance on a mobile project. And then with that experience, I can apply and work for a company that's mobile first. But essentially, what you also want to do is you also want your projects to reflect within what the company is looking for. And
Yeah.
essentially, everything has to make sense. Once it makes sense, that's when the company is sold by your vision, and that's why when they will hire you on the spot. I'd say that that's the key thing. Yeah. Does
Yeah,
that make
that
sense?
makes me, yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Mhm. Cool, amazing. So, do you have any other questions that we haven't touched on?
No, I don't think so. No, I think that you gave me some great tips. I think all my questions are answered.
Amazing. Well. First of all, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Yeah.
No, it's been really nice, getting to know you, hearing about all these different challenges that you've had, as well as hearing your own story. And yeah, I'm sure you're gonna have a very successful career as a UX designer.
Thank you. Thanks. That's good to hear. Yeah, no, it was really great meeting you too. I'm like, oh, he spent time at UBC. That's funny, when you're just like connected through other
Mhm.
people. It's nice. And I'm really social, so I like meeting people. So it's okay.
No, it's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.